Welcome to Topline Hotline.
Well, hello, you little devils. Welcome to Topline Hotline. We're back. We're better than ever. We're thin. We're cleansed. We took all kinds of things to protect our gut microbiome. And we're well rested, reasonably so. You know, Topline Hotline, it is that weekly segment where we bring you the best from go-to-market from my co-hosts, Asad Zaman, CEO of Sales Talent Agency, AJ Bruno, CEO of QuotaPath, and myself, Sam Jacobs, CEO of Pavilion. We're here to answer your burning questions about go-to-market, about sales, about marketing, about revenue, about building companies. It's a short segment. You can listen to it on your way to wherever you might be heading. And now, let's get started.
Asad, I don't know about you, but all I heard was Sam called us thin, and that's
I was
great.
so
I'm
happy.
taking that into the new
Nicest
year.
thing he's ever said.
Because of colon blow.
Okay, let's jump in.
right.
We have a really interesting question from the depths of the Slack, Pavilion Slack. The question is, good morning, everyone. We are revamping our PIP. That's a performance improvement plan for those who don't know. We are revamping our PIP for the sales team and are looking for a completely new plan. Would love some advice on plans that have word best practices, etc. Some additional context. The data on PIPs isn't great, but from what I found, the success rate sits between 20 and 25%, meaning 75 to 80% of folks put on PIPs don't stay in the role. Their performance doesn't improve, and eventually a company terminates them. Or once they are put on a PIP, they take that as writing on the wall. They start looking for a job and they leave on their own. And so, AJ, you are an expert go-to-market leader in addition to all the other cool things that you are. And so what are your thoughts on this?
AJ, you're an expert at writing pips and terminating.
Everybody hates you, AJ. What do you think?
So I am going to be really curious for both of you, because we all live in this world. So it's not just me as the expert as to like how you have all thought about it. But my thinking on pips has definitely evolved. At my first company, we didn't have pips at all. There wasn't a thing. I actually never heard the term performance improvement plan. You just fired people if they didn't hit quota. You literally said, you didn't hit quota. This is your third month not hitting a quota. This is at Meltwater. You're gone. Literally black or white. It wasn't a performance plan. You're gone. And so when for Trendkite, when I was growing the team, I was like, pips are bullshit. You're like, it's black or white. Sales is black or white, whether you do it. And then my thinking evolved on this, and I talked to a couple great sales leaders who were like, look, there's actually some really good thinking in terms of how you can help a rep improve and get them to change by giving them that jolt that you need to do. And I was like, okay, also it's just good hygiene and good practice. And in some states, in like Massachusetts, for example, where you have like real strong payroll regulations, you have to have it. This was in Texas, so who the hell cared? But
you can do whatever you want. Bring a gun to
whatever
work.
you want in Texas. But we had reps around the country, and so you wanted to make sure you like followed the right practice. And so I started doing them, and honestly, it brought such clarity for me as a leader where I could improve. It was just like I was like, holy cow! Like here's the things that you can improve where you are tracking and what we can work on together. But we, as sales leaders, focus so heavily on the sales aspect of it versus the soft like leadership side of how you when you come in, how you carry yourself, and all of those things. For low, I'm talking about low performers here, by the way.
Yeah.
Because for high performers, we spend so much time talking about high performers. Yeah. That if someone is leaning in and really cares, they can certainly work their way off a PIP. I can't tell you the number of, I can tell you it's 3 times. The number of times where I put a person on a PIP and then they went to become our bestseller.
What?
Haley O'Neill. I'm going to give a shout out to Haley O'Neill right now.
Shout out Haley.
You were once terrible, Haley.
But now you're amazing.
She was always at the top of the activity leaderboard,
Interesting.
but she struggled mightily on quotas. I was like, we're going to figure this out. And I paired her with my top manager, Max Bergen, at the time. I said, Max, like, just attach yourself at the hip, Haley. Haley can do this. She went on for the next 2.5 years to sell 150% every quarter, every single quarter.
Let's go.
One other thing about this. So today on performance plans, I've kind of pulled back. So my thinking has evolved, right? I've pulled back on them a little bit. And the way I was talking to my current sales leader, we are thinking about them now is like, hey, rather than putting someone straightforward on a performance plan, sit down with them and say, you're headed towards a performance plan.
Yeah.
Here are the things that we are going to work on. I don't need you to sign anything officially. It's very black or white. Like, let's actually work on these things today so we don't get to that point. And that's my thinking on
I
performance
really
plan. But I'd
like
love
that.
to hear from you too.
Sam, what are you thinking?
We were on group text, and I said I think this would be a good question for AJ, and I was right once again. My thinking has evolved a little bit with less rigor, but in definitely the same direction as AJ. When I first started managing people, I said pips are stupid. Be very clear about what the expectations are for the role. Clarify them all the time, and say this is red, yellow, green. And when you're in red, if you are in red for more than 30 days, consider yourself on a pip. You could get a tap on the shoulder at any point. And I feel like that and the stridency, the strength of that opinion was completely informed by my lack of management experience. So it was like everything's very simple. Everybody else is an idiot. I know best. Pips don't work. I think, and then you talk to people that have been doing it. I mean, he just said 3 times he's put people on a plan and they've become the top seller. Every manager that I've talked to that I shared that opinion with such strength of conviction has said, I don't know, sometimes they work. Sort of echoing your 80-20 rule, which is most of the time they don't, but sometimes they do. And for the people that they do, wouldn't you rather 20% improve to contribute to performance? Because a failed hire is way, way more expensive.
Yeah.
They're just so incredibly expensive because you've already spent all that time ramping them and developing them and training them. So if they're a kick in the ass and structured coaching on a specific skill away from hitting quota, don't you want to do that rather than go back out, have to ramp somebody brand new, have to pray that they're going to work out and hopefully they're going to contribute? So there's still a really crappy, morale impact, especially because it tends to get around that people know that the other person's on a pip and you're sort of aware of it. And most of the time they don't work out. But I also have to, having been through this as a CEO and having hired people in a lot of different states, I think AJ is also right that there's a liability perspective. There's a legal perspective. You're going to have to write, generally speaking, when you're trying to make non-reduction in force, non-layoff decisions, performance-based decisions, there needs to be documentation. A PIP is the best probable way because it's very clear, it's very direct, and it typically has a defined timeline. It says you will get better by this time.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that I tend to so I don't love them. I'm not the biggest fan. They mostly don't work, but sometimes they do, and they're probably necessary from a labor law perspective.
That's so interesting. I share where AJ is with it right now. In my entire career, I've put a person on a PIP once, and it's worked. But I had very low belief in the PIP, and I'm slowly evolving my point of view on it. I think the intention behind it really matters. So, if a sales leader is putting somebody on a PIP and they really want that person to get better and they want to work with that person to help them get better, then it could be that kick in the ass and it could be a good reset. I agree with AJ that you should probably be having those conversations way before, and you don't need to sign a piece of paper to shake a person up. You can have a very adult conversation with them and achieve the same thing. So, but I can see its value over there. If you're doing it because you want to let a person grow and not pay severance or something of that sort, I don't think you should be that stingy about things. I think in that instance, you're trying to create documentation for something that I think is unnecessary in the grand scheme of things, because the negative morale impact and cultural impact of having a person on a PIP who then probably isn't getting the support and the PIP isn't specific and achievable and all of those things, I think the negatives outweigh the positive in that instance. So check your intention. Do you actually want this person to get better? Do you think they can get better? Like, do you see any signals that they can get better. AJ's person had amazing activity, and he as a commercial leader saw that, okay, if I can, this person's putting in the right energy, I see the other characteristics are there, I need to coach against a few things and they'll become dangerous. And it worked. But if you don't have that hypothesis, then don't do it. In terms of some best practices, if you do decide to do it because you think this person will respond well to it, have a timeline associated with it that made sense. Usually the suggested timeline is a quarter. Quarter is enough time to see if things are trending in the right direction. Make sure that there are specific targets in terms of outcomes and activities. And the big one is that they are now your top priority for coaching and mentorship. And so usually what happens is that when a person's on a PIP, from what I've heard from people on it, they stop getting time. And that's just, it's going in a bad direction. They need to feel that you're equipping them for success as well. Otherwise, they'll just think that you did this to not pay them a severance, and they're feeling scared and angry and looking for a job. If you really wanted to work, make them a top priority. And then if things are going well, this is the bonus point. You now need to amplify this in your organization, because what happens when you put a person on a PIP? The entire leadership team has heard about it, right? That person has lost their brand internally a little bit, and that scares them, because upward mobility has to do with not just the manager's point of view on a person, but also other people's point of view on them. Do we want this person to grow in our organization? So if you put them on a PIP and they've turned it around, make sure that that is celebrated and recognized across the various levels, so that the person can feel that they turned this around. Those would be some thoughts.
And shout out to Haley. Haley is now the head of CX at Eternova. The CEO of Eternova was one of my sales managers.
Let's
Garrett
go.
Ozar. So that's what happens.
And with that, thank you, everybody. This has been Topline Hotline. We have to all go. Give us 5 stars in the iTunes store. We'll talk to you on Monday for the next episode of Topline. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Topline Hotline.